So they just had a bite to eat and a cup of tea, and yeah, I'm just getting back onto this door now. So let's have a look. So where we left off, I put this piece in. I've ground that up just briefly through there. Haven't ground that part yet. Even with all the excess metal, I still managed to make this a little bit short. That's okay. What I'll do when I make this return on the door, I'll just make it a little bit wider. It's no biggie. But yeah, I had all this extra metal, and still, once I had finished manipulating the shape, I ended up with too little, and I think I cut too much off as well. Anyway, so I've got this starting to come together okay, so you can see the shape coming in, got that welded in. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to make a piece to come along here. Now I'll have to do this as a separate piece, so it's got a bit of a funny shape to it, and I've got this shape gauge thing, and all you do with this is you sit it over the material and push this down. It's a bit like those things that you can put your face in or your hand in, the nails, so it leaves the shape. And so that's the shape that I'm working with. Now I was going to get a piece of steel and beat it over a bar or something like that, but I think what I'm going to do, I've got a homemade roller, and I think I'm going to just try and roll this in a larger piece of steel and cut it down to size. It'll either work or it won't, but I'll make something about 300 long, about a foot long. I'll probably not even worry about that. No, also I'll come up to here somewhere. It starts changing direction just here, so I'll use it as long as I possibly can, and then this corner I'm going to have to sort of play around with a little bit separately, patching it together like I have been. So let's have a look, see what I come up with. So I've cut a piece of steel, cleaned it up just off of that sheet there. What you may have noticed about my garage is that, or my space, is that I've got a lot of stuff. I have a lot of tools, a lot of equipment. What I don't have much of is space. Anyway, I made this thing. It's just a sheet metal roller. It's just a couple of pieces of water pipe welded together. Bit of a gap between them on a stand. What I'm going to do is pop the piece of steel that I've just cut in here and just push a bit of shape into it. Now I've made the steel larger than I need to, so that I can get some leverage on it. I'm not going to be able to do this holding the camera, so let's have it. I've just popped my piece of sheet metal in there, and because it's only narrow, I couldn't get much leverage on it, so I've just got 3 shifters here just to give me some handles. And just going to try and bend it down. It's sort of bending unevenly at the moment. Just trying to put some shape into it. This may or may not be successful. I'll find those things out through trying. I don't know if I've put any bend in that yet or not, or whether the shifters have just been bending it. A tiny little bit in it. Might try it without the shifters. See what happens. The glove on, so I won't cut this off. All I want to do is put a bit of shape into it. Should have done that in the first place. A bit more. The gentle part of it's looking okay. I need to put a sharp part into it now, so I wonder if I push it in a bit further and try and give it some steep. Sort of looks like it's getting there. Need a bit more through this point here, a bit more sharpness to it. Not looking too bad. Let's take that away and see if we can place it on the door. So I just went through and cut the back piece of that off, the part that I didn't need, and this is the curved bit. Now if I sit it on here, I think I will be able to use sort of the middle section of that to get the curve that I need. I think that actually works pretty well. So what I'll do, I'll tie it in with this piece of steel. So I'll come through here, bring it along like that, so to speak. Probably just come to that corner because it starts changing shape again, so that'll be another piece. I'll make this so that it fits a little bit better. Shape isn't exactly the same here, but I'm sure I can make it blend. Actually, this sits pretty well. So I think that's pretty good. So that was only a few minutes work. That sheet metal roller that you saw me use, I made that. Cost me nothing other than welding wire, time and a bit of paint. So yeah, I like making tools. Made my welding trolley. I made the part that holds my shrinker stretcher and so on. Saves you money, gives you tools. So I knew it was going to happen sometime soon. I ran out of argon gas partway through my weld there. Sorry, CO2, shield gas for my welder partway through that. So it's a bit splattery and so on. But I've got that in place. So you can see it's coming together. I have cut through over here. I'll continue that cut. I didn't want to cut into the door unnecessarily. So this is the door just here. This is the new metal. This is new metal. So the door's behind here. So the line from the angle grinder, that'll be the points where I weld the two together. So at this point in time, I think what I'm going to do, so I think it's a bit late to go and get some gas today. I'm going to go through, I'll trim this up. I'll trim it up to, I'm going to work to this line just here. Where are we? Got to work to that line just there. That's where I'm going to cut this, because it's easy to shape a line than it is partway through a curve. And I'll trim off the face of this. I'll play around with making this. I will do some tacks just to hold stuff in place without gas, just to keep things in place, but I'll have to get gas before I continue on. But I've broken the back of it. This is next, and as far as fabricating, and then this part down here. And once that's done, as I said, I'll grind all this up, get it all clean, and then we'll worry about the outer part of the door skin. I've spent a little bit of time dressing this up after I welded it, and I cut this shorter. It's still going to be a little bit too long, but I'm creeping up on it rather than running up on it. So this is a little bit long still. still sitting on top of all the old panel work, so it's all going to come down in tighter. So this will probably end up getting cut back another 3mm back once it comes down and sits in. Haven't done anything with this part yet. Went through, trimmed off the top of this. Again, I will go through, I'll tack it in place once the time is right. Tack it in place, and then I will run the grinder through and just make sure that there's a nice gap there for weld to get into. Come around the corner. Haven't done anything more on the end there yet. But what I have been doing is I've been cutting and shaping my overlaid panel. So I like this part of the door, and this was what I made. So I cut it and I just tap it in with a hammer just to get it to conform. And then same down through here, I've cut through here. I've stopped part way through. Not worried about these overcuts, they'll just be welded. And I'm going to work my way down here. Now, I don't want to go too far just at the moment, because I need to actually try and remember how much of this I need. So I'm going to take this panel back off. I'm now removing, I've still got that cleco point, which is good, but pretty much nothing else to refer to back here other than the metal that I've cut, but I've still got those. So I'm trying to maintain my cleco points for as long as I can. So what I'm going to do now, this has sprung up a bit, so while it's off, I'll actually again bring that back down again, and I will have a look to see just how far I want to go through here, and then I'll start cutting, and I'll see, I may cut right the way through the external door skin as well, since it's being replaced. We'll have a look. So just been working away on this, trying to do what I can without having gas. So I've just made this little corner piece up. That doesn't look too bad. It has got some body filler on the other side, but it's not too bad. A little bit of rust there, but it'll clean up okay. So I've just made this piece up, so it'll go in there. It's just the same flange, same bend in it, so it'll come into here. I'll cut this through here, that'll come in. There's a little dent there that I've still got to bang out. This still needs to be cut to length. I'll replace parts of this lip. The previous repairs, they had sort of just welded stuff. I couldn't work out if there was a lip there or not. So I'll replace parts of these lips, and I will repair parts of them. Again, this will come in here. It's all okay. They'll need a little bit of tweaking as I'm going along. So as I weld, I'll pull things up, pull things down, and so on to get them to line up. Need to shape this as I'm welding, and just need to cut this off. And I don't think I'm going to go any further than that. I don't think I'm going to worry too much about making the outer panels until I've got this welded in place, I think. We'll see. It's coming up well. Back into it. The afternoon again of the next day. I've been out today getting gas and welding supplies. Yesterday, before I finished up, I finished cleaning up inside the door, and I put some red primer in there on the bare metal. Gave it a really good clean up, cleaned it with thinners, then cleaned it with wax and grease remover. This part's still going to be repaired later, but I've got everything that matters in primer because I'm about to start putting this panel in. What I will do before I put that in, I probably should have done it last night, is I'm going to put some primer on the back of it. I might use some weld through primer for no other reason other than the fact that I may need to weld a couple of spots. I will drill some holes to put some plug welds in here and onto the bottom of this. And other than that, I'm pretty sure I'm right to go. Look at that, eh? Brand new air hose. No more tangly, springy thing. Okay, so I have gone through and drilled a bunch of holes through here. They're probably about 4mm in diameter. Just used a step drill for that. And I primed the inside of my rust repair panel, and I put some holes there for plug welds as well. Some to go onto here and some to go onto here. I need to just grind a bit of paint off there. And then this is otherwise ready to go in there. That's what I'm about to do. All I've done so far is I've tacked in around this area here. Some of the gaps are a little bit wide. What I found was that as I was shaping this, some of my gaps opened up a bit wider and changed and so on. So I'm just going to work with it. This part here, for example, which I had really good, has lifted up. I'll probably end up either heating that and banging it down, or just banging it without heat, or even putting a relief cut in there, moving it down and filling the gap in. It'll be okay, I'm not concerned about it. This corner here, it blew out a couple of places, so I've just put a heap of weld in there. I've got no problem putting a heap of weld onto the corner. It means that I can grind it and shape it without worrying about thinning the metal out or going through. This part here, I'll bang down, get into place. This part, it'll come together. I'd still need to replace this little piece here, that's why the big gap and the rust. This part here, I put a clamp on it and pulled the two pieces together. This was sort of springing up. As I got into shape, it sprung up. So I've been checking the line. It hasn't affected the line. That's good. So it's still straight. It's still true. But what I'm going to do is I'll go through and I'll open it up with a 1mm angle grinder blade, weld it back up again, open it up, weld it back up. As it is at the moment, it's too close and I won't get penetration. So if I was TIG welding, which I can't do, but I know that if I was TIG welding, you'd want it to be really neat, tight fit like that. But with MIG for the penetration, I want to get a 1mm cut through there. So I'll cut a bit, weld it, cut a bit, weld it, and that way I can follow it along. Ensuring not to get too much heat in here and distort it. So I'll blow air onto it every now and then. A little bit of debauchery here, but that's okay. They're just tacks at the moment. I'm just trying to get the shape. And I'll work my way along. Haven't done anything along this line here yet. As you can see, it's nice and tight. You could almost forget that it was there. But what I'll do, I'll run along with a 1mm grinder and I'll cut it, I'll weld it, cut it, weld it, cut it, weld it, and so on. And then around here, I'll pull this into place, and this appears to have sprung down. I actually beat these corners. They were sprung up a little bit, and I think what's happened is when I've done that, when I've clamped it, it's pulled it down. So I may be able to fix this, or I may just have to fill it. It's unfortunate, but it'll come out all right. So I've got the majority of the welding done there. I still need to finish off this corner. Haven't done anything with that yet. So let's have a look. A lot of ugliness is what you see. I've ground some bits back, haven't ground other bits back. This piece here actually pulled in a bit, so there's got to be a little bit of filler in there. I've gone through. Now, if you haven't done this before, if you haven't been exposed to this, I'm not saying my welding is beautiful, but this is what you're expecting to see. It's not pretty. It's a lot of individual tacks. It looks ugly, and that is always the way it's going to be. What I did down here, I did drill the holes. I did drill the holes so that I could plug weld, but unfortunately, my own stupidity, because I had primed the inside of the steel, it just kept catching on fire as I was drilling the holes, and it was just burning the metal out and just being ugly. So I ended up just spotting it next to it, and then I went through and I just filled these holes with a bit of coat hanger. Oh, it's actually welding wire. I wasn't trying to use them as plug welds anymore. I was actually just trying to fill the hole. So that was a bit of a shame, but it can all be ground back. So we've got along here, this is all done. So I've got enough metal there, and I've been building up the weld so that I've got something to grind back. So the same along this corner, this ugliness that you see here, it's actually sticking out quite a bit from the surface. And what I'll do is I'll grind this surface, the vertical, I'll grind the horizontal, and then I'll go through and I'll round off the corner. And I'm convinced that there's plenty of weld in there for me to round it off without making it too thin. There's still a couple of little pinholes here, and what will happen is as I grind this back, I should say, I will find some pinholes, or I'll make some pinholes as I'm going along, and I'll go through and I'll re-weld those spots. But what we have, and the paint was sort of just bubbling a little bit underneath here, and look, that's no biggie. I've sort of come to the conclusion that I'm going to be painting at least up to the trim just here, which again has got overspray on it, just based on the fact that this part here, this is the outer skin that I still need to repair, and it's really only this corner here. But I've got that structure back in there. I'm happy with it. As I said, there is a little sunken spot through here. I am happy with it. I think it's going to come up really well, and of course I will show you what it comes up like when it's ground. So this is the result of my last effort. I was working on this till about 9 o'clock at night actually. So I'm in the garage, so I was working in a confined space and there's filth and mess everywhere, but no, you do what you do. So what I've got here is, as far as I'm concerned, this is ready for primer and body fill. I'm happy with the way it's come up. There is a distinct depression in it through here. So once I put some filler on that, I reckon it will probably be maybe a mil and a half thick. Let's have a look here. Yeah, so it's a bit hard to tell, but that's probably, at its deepest point, it's probably about 2 mil, but then it peters out, and then the same sort of thing. Actually, there's not much there at all. So that's pretty good. Around here, there'll be a little bit of filler in this area here. There was a dent there. Wasn't able to get it out completely. Sort of rebuilt the lip around this area. This here I'm going to put seam sealer all along here. So I'll use the finger technique with that. So these spot welds and so on won't become ugly, and the seam sealer will seal the seam to stop water and so on getting in there. And the corner around here, pretty happy with the way that's come up. Managed to get this line to carry through. Need a little bit of filler in this spot here. Comes around to the hinge, remembering there'll be a hinge mounted here. So you're not going to see any of this, but I'm happy that it's going to come up okay anyway. So I did have to modify this particular part just here, which I showed earlier. I put a cut in it, banged it down, filled it up with weld. So in those sorts of areas, I put quite a bit of weld in there so that I could shape it. So yeah, there's a lot of steel. I patched this corner in through here. It was relatively straightforward. I think the door is a bit misshapen through this area here. So there's a bit of a bump in it there, but at the end of the day, it really is not going to make any difference. And there is a trim that goes over this. It's like a wood grain panel that goes over this whole bottom bit, which comes down to here somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where it comes, but it comes down to here somewhere. So it's no excuse, like I'm still trying to do as good as I possibly can, but at the end of the day, most of it's not going to be seen. And just gave this a little bit more clean up, filled a couple of holes. So this is ready for epoxy primer and then some body fill, and I'll probably fiberglass some of the thicker areas, as in body filler with fiberglass in it. And then I'll go through and put a light smear of body filler over the whole thing, again, after epoxy primer to seal it off. I haven't done this corner yet, so that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to flip the door over, make this corner, weld it in. I'll take the trim off that's on the other side so that I can join it underneath that trim so it's one less visible seam. Let's get to it. So we've taken the door outside and flipped it over. As I'm looking along it here, I can see a distinct amount of sort of warpage along this panel. I don't believe it's from anything I've done. I believe it's from the previous work, or it might be a combination. But as I said, it's got a reasonable smear of body filler in here anyway. And along about here is where I believe the joint is from the previous work. So I've taken the trim off. It just appears to slide along on these brackets, and then they seem to be double-sided taped down. Actually, if I look just here, you can see just there, that's where the previous repair was done. Would have sort of made sense if I was doing it. If I was them, I would have repaired up and done the join underneath the trim, but hey, I didn't do the work. So this is the part I'm going to concentrate on now. So this is the underside of the part that was obviously on the other end of the door when it was upside down. So I've got to clean this up, have a look, see how far it goes back, and then I'll just replace whatever is necessary through here. I saw underneath there's actually pretty good metal through here, and even down here is not too bad, but we'll probably end up replacing the corner about this size. I'll grind off some of these spots. What I've decided I'm going to do is, because we've got to paint the underside and all that stuff, I'm probably just going to paint right the way up to this line here, the same as has been done previously. That is underneath the trim, and that way I can do that as long as we match the colour pretty well. Then it's not going to be just a patchwork. Up here, this all needs doing at some point in time as well. You can see there's been work. I don't want to see, I don't want to look at the moment as to what's there. This is where it was bent back. We'll have to try and fix it. I might take that trim off, try and panel beat it out a bit. But again, focusing on what we're doing. So this is going to be our next work. I'll try not to remove or destroy that. They are just double-sided taped on by the looks of things anyway. I'll clean up along here. We're going to end up putting new body filler in along here. So yeah, let's work on the bottom half of this door.